So with the need to be able to take out a mortgage to be able to build a tier 1 deck in Riftbound, what can we do in the meantime to be able to still be able to compete without absolutely breaking the bank? Well, we're going to be diving into deck lists that are going to be able to still show up to the meta, give them a good fighting chance, even possibly win it all at your locals, while also not being able to break the bank. What are those deck lists? How much are these going to cost? Well, all of that and more starting right now. Yeah, and that's exactly what we're going to be discussing because, yeah, this market just went, skyrocketing high, and we don't want to necessarily have to pay, $40 for 1,000 Tail Watcher. Now, yes, those cards are going to be coming down eventually. We've seen patterns in China, for example, with how this card game has been going. Yes, there's definitely a lot more product that has been circulating in the United States, but also even in Europe, the prices on card market aren't nearly as high as what they are in America, and there could be multiple reasons for that. First and foremost, Houston as a regional, a lot of people trying to build up their decks and even just let alone getting play testing done so that they can go ahead and have their best fighting chance at the first regionals in the early December. Likewise, though, it's going to be interesting because, like I said, in China, when the first regional ended up happening, we saw even things like Hourglass for Master Yi going for near $20. We saw, Dead Bloom being an astronomical price as well, and people were freaking out all the same, like, oh, wow, this is going to be very expensive for us to try to get into this game. I don't necessarily know how I feel about that. Well, now, a couple months later, the market has severely calmed down, and that's been absolutely great to be able to see because the game is a lot more affordable for those who want to play it. We saw on Saturday that the market was actually incredibly healthy, aside for a few cards. We had a Cathian Rain and Time Warp and stuff that were in the $30, Dead Bloom Predator that was in the $60, but then overnight, just on that Sunday, it went up to near $80 to $90, which is just absolutely insane. So we are going to be diving into 4 decks, if I recall correctly, yes, 4 decks, that are going to be helping you get in so that you can be able to play in the meta and even have a pretty good chance. So this is going to be a fun one. And we have the prices that are going to be marked. And of course, these prices are from the around midnight on the 3rd of November. So keep that in mind. And again, this could get cheaper. We've seen prices already starting to come down and simmer down. They're not going to necessarily come down as quickly as they went up. That's natural. That's unfortunately not how it works. So with that, we are going to be talking about the decks that you can bring to be able to stand a chance. Now, caveat there. Thing to remember is that this game is a lot more skill and strategy based, just with how the battlefields and interactions work. There is going to be a little bit of a learning curve to know the correct lines. And there's even things that, even after all the games that I've ended up playing online or otherwise, that I'm still finding new lines with the deck that I've been playing, straight through. On my live streams, I'm still finding new stuff. There was a guy yesterday who watched one of my tournament games and broke down my gameplay and just said what I did good and what I could improve on. And I even found a couple of new lines there as well. The knowledge that is needed to be a successful pilot of these decks in the game are very interesting to be able to see. And so here we go, guys. Without any further ado, just keep in mind, though, pilot skill is going to be a very big difference maker when you go to your local game scene, especially as people continue to still learn the game. So with that being said, first and foremost, we are going to be looking into Jinx. Now, the big reason why Jinx is going to be not too expensive at all is because everything is going to be in the structure deck, and then, of course, a few things that you need to fill in the gaps with. Keep in mind that if you do want to do a more budget-friendly version, we'll be putting up additional deck lists on screen, but this is one that's still going to be competitive, but still able to, but still a little bit pricey with some of the big stuff to help get you at least going. this is going to be a deck list that actually ended up winning a best of 3 in China locals. It was 120 something people that ended up fighting in it, and it is an interesting list. Now, with that being said, yes, you're looking at this and you're seeing, by the way, that there is a Seal of Rage. Those are going to be about $18 to $20 each, a little bit pricey. Falling Star has been falling a lot in price. It was $22 just 2 days ago. Now it is down to about $13 to $15. And then other than that, there really isn't anything that is expensive here. And so that's going to be the biggest thing. The Battlefield, Zon Warrens, the Arena's Greatest, and Candlelit Sanctum. Both, all three really great options for you to be able to play. Sundisk, surprisingly, one of the best cards that you can go ahead and play in this game, or with this deck at least. It fits really well and creates a really cool synergy for the rest of the deck and just brings it all together. Seal of Rage, of course, is going to be expensive, but it definitely helps you bring down your power cost, aka the cards you need to recycle, and can really just help get you going. Also, one great move that you are able to do, by the way, is if you are going first, you can have your 2 runes out, tap 1 to get that as a floating mana, play Seal of Rage, recycle the tapped mana, then tap the other rune to then play a Noxus Hopeful out to get a 4 might unit out for 2 on the very first turn. That can be very difficult to try to get around. Now, of course, also with this, your win con is going to be trying to get to 6 points. Then you go ahead and can do Vi and Ride the Wind and be able to go from 6 to 8 points very easily. Vi is going to be your bread and butter, and this is what makes the Annie deck so good in this case, is because they go that combo as well. This isn't necessarily going to be able to move as aggressively. You're not running the Dariuses, the Vaynes. You could run Vayne in here. It can be a pretty decent option. Or the Kaisas. Kaisas already being $60 for the base. Not going to do it. Now, with that, the sideboard is also going to be incredibly cheap. You know, I think it's only about $10 for the entire side deck, with Rebuke being the more expensive one at $1 or $2 in this case. And so with that, it's going to be interesting to see, because this whole deck comes out after shipping and everything at about $125. Now, at the same time, this is going to be something to keep in mind too, is that if you actually ended up pulling these cards, or you do even have a lot of the structure deck, this is going to be a lot more viable of an option for you. And so that's going to be something to keep in mind. And Jinx is a really interesting deck. When she works, she can explode. She can just go ahead and go extremely wide with everything and just dominate your board state. And it can be very hard for you to be able to catch up as an opponent. The one thing that you need to be careful with, though, is that if you do end up getting a little bit slow of a start, it can be very difficult for you to continue to get that momentum back, and you're just going to continually fall behind. And so Jinx is still a really great deck. Her legend ability is incredibly good. If you have 0 or 1 cards in hand, then you're able to draw 2 at the start of your turn. And so, yeah, you're just able to continually refill your hand, and you thrive with having those 1 or 2 cards, because you're going to be able to get 2 or 3 cards in your hand at the start of every turn. Really helpful, really fun deck. And again, side note real quick, if you do want to maybe not, or well, when you do maybe not want to spend so much money on a deck, or you don't know if you're necessarily going to like it, I highly recommend playing on tcgarena.fr. Link is going to be in the comment below, or in the description below. And the reason why I say that is because you are able to go ahead and build your deck in the game. And then not only that, you are able to go against random people and figure out if this deck is one that you would like to pilot. Because yes, even spending $130, that can seem like a lot, and it is. And if you ended up buying this deck and then realizing, actually, this doesn't really fit my play style, that really hurts. And so go ahead and play on TCG Arena. You also can play on Tabletop Simulator. We have a great mod, but that is about $30 to be able to download the game itself. The mod is free, and then there are a lot of online communities to be able to play. Really great stuff. I'll pin that also in the comments as well. And so next, of course, we are going to be taking a look at Miss Fortune. Now, of course, Miss Fortune has a very good tier 1 deck, which is going to be with the Auroras. And that's a little bit difficult to try to get through because Auroras are $90. Dead Bloom Predators are also extremely expensive at $90, and you're going to end up spending about $600 to $700, at least right now, on getting this deck going, and we don't want to do that. No. So instead, what we're going to do is build this deck. Now, little asterisk here, something to keep in mind with this. This deck is difficult to pilot. Plain and simple. To find the correct lines, to know the lines to go, it can be very difficult to pilot here. But once you find these lines, man, it is really fun. Now, if you do want to take out the seal at the top, you are more than welcome to. That'll save you about $20. At the same time, bullet time is going to be about $16 a piece. And then invert timelines is going to be about $20 as well, with set being around $30. Again, yes, we are going to be spending a little bit of money on trying to get a deck going, but at the same time, this is going to be able to at least stand up a lot better than if we went full on budget with, no sets and all of that stuff as well. This gives you a bit more of a fighting chance for a little bit more money. And so that's something to definitely keep in mind, because the bulk of the deck after that, I think the Kiana is about $4, if I remember correctly. Primal Strength is about $1 or $2, and everything else is dirt cheap, under $1. Stack Deck had a little bit of a spike at $5, but it's coming back down. I mean, it's, uncommon in that case, so it'll come down. And you very well might have pulled them all. And so very interesting things to be able to keep in mind with this deck. It does a really good job at being able to maintain a good board state. Also, more importantly, this is a great deck to keep your opponent guessing. I went against Prismaticism, who is one of the best online players, at my last tournament that I entered, and he played this deck, and I was running Kaisa. It was rough. The main reason why it was so rough was because the entire time I was guessing on what I was even going against. And by the time game 2 was over, I'm like, I still have no idea what to even expect. And that made me even fumble a little bit as well, because I was trying to figure out what even this deck does, and I have no idea. When opponents go ahead and attack in going against you while piloting this deck, you have things like Fight or Flight, Rebuke, even Ride the Wind you can activate to be able to grab your unit and move them over to the other battlefield that might not be occupied, and you score that way. There's a lot of really fun stuff. Again, this is kind of taking the Annie way, but then making it a bit more defensive, with hiding things like the P.E.K.K.A.'s Cub in this case, which is going to be adding 3 might. And then also, if your opponent ends up just drawing like crazy, if you're going against Ahri, if you're going against even Kaisa and she starts to really go off, well, then you can do invert timelines, because you might be struggling with cards in hand. Cool. I'm going to draw up to 4. You force your opponent to discard everything and then draw up to 4, and that can really hurt them as well. Kiana is also one of the bread and butter cards of this deck. It is so difficult for Kaisa to be able to go against this deck, because unless they have like a cleave with either Kaisa or a cleave Darius, it just really sucks, because you do not want to use your spells, because then you have the deflect from Kiana, and that is just such a great option for you, because it can really slow down your opponent. Now, with the side deck, again, very cheap in this case. Sabotage and Rebuke are going to be the most expensive ones. Then again, you're only running the third one in the side deck, and Sabotage, you're running the other 2 of the 3 there. Now, of course, you could switch and flop that. If you look back, we do have the seal up at the top, you could go ahead and substitute that out and put in another Sabotage. That is always a great option. Or you could even put in another Rebuke as well and go up to 3. Choice is yours, but all in all, this sideboard is very cheap. Unyielding Spirit is going to be so good also when you're going against Kai'Sa or, those decks that deal a lot of damage, either with abilities or spells, can really slow them down. Cannon Barrage can really hurt going against like Darius's or Victor's, and at your local game store, you are going to be seeing a lot more Victors in this case because a lot of people are just wanting to play this game. So they went to an opening event, they got their Victor deck, they're upgrading it a little bit, and they're going to bring it to their locals. So just really fun stuff to be able to have there. Now, with this as well, this is going to be a little bit more expensive at $175. That's going to be mainly because of bullet time. Sabotage is a little bit expensive as well, and Misfortune. She's going to be a $15 card in this case, and that's because she is a little bit sought after. Everything else, though, aside from, of course, what we've already discussed, are going to be pretty reasonable prices. And again, if you want to make a little bit more budget of an option, we'll put the deck list right here so that you can see what we are wanting to do here. It's going to be a very interesting time to see how this meta is going to continue to change. But Misfortune is a really fun deck. But again, that one's going to be probably the hardest one to pilot. At the same time, all of these decks, while they are going to have a little bit of meta cards, these are all going to be under $200, with Jinx being, of course, the cheapest. That's why we started with her first. So next, of course, we are going to be looking at Yasuo. Now, this guy, he's fun. I really like what he's able to do as a deck here. And Yasuo can be someone who really can take it to the meta. They have the ability to defy a lot, so they have a good time going against Kai'Sa and things of that nature. They have the ability to go ahead and move around like what you've seen with Annie or, with what Misfortune's able to do. So you get kind of the best of both worlds while still being able to go ahead and take it to your opponent. You can have one mana left during your opponent's turn, play something like Unguard and give your unit +2. You can also flash your stuff back as well. Now, of course, don't run flash right now because it is an exclusive card from the Proving Grounds and is going for about $22. So go ahead and you can take that out for another Unguard in that case, or another Charm. Either or, both are going to be really good options for you in that. And so this is going to be a very interesting one because you're not necessarily wanting to go first. You don't necessarily have really any 2 costs. Going second is going to be really good. Now, there are going to be a couple of different deck lists that you could look up on Piltover Archive. This is the one in particular that we wanted to build. And again, your big cost items are going to be White Flame Protector at about $30 each. Hourglass is going to be about $7 in that case. But otherwise, the Yasuo is going to be maybe $8. This is probably one of the cheaper decks. If you go ahead and look at the sideboard as well, this is going to be where you spend a tiny bit of money. You see Invert Timelines. Of course, you can switch that out for another Spirit's Refuge. And also Last Breath and Mystical Reversal can be a little bit expensive. But of course, there are going to be some options for you that can make this a bit more budget friendly. But even still, this isn't necessarily a very expensive one, $184 when you buy this outright. Again, these prices are coming down a little bit, and we are putting this enough to be able to take it to your opponent in this case. And so that's going to be something to keep in mind. This is a deck that can really surprise your opponents as well when they are playing, Kai'Sas or things of that nature, Master Yi's even. This can be formidable against. And so it's going to be really fun to see how this deck is able to interact because it can really catch your opponent off guard because they're not used to the green and purple combo. So you get the movement and the aggression that you can add with that while also being able to continue to build up your board, and it can make your units so difficult to try to take down. It makes this incredibly fun, and he is an incredibly fun deck to be able to play while also being able to overwhelm your opponent. And then, of course, the biggest thing that you might struggle with is Falling Star and things of that nature. So you finally get out your Yasuo. They try to Falling Star it while you have the Unguard to be able to go ahead and add +2. And they have to extend a lot more resources on trying to take care of your unit. And then if he actually ends up surviving, you're able to really just take it back, because the biggest thing that like Kaisa and Yi really struggle with in this meta is that they really struggle taking back or they really struggle holding battlefields if you're Kaisa and taking back battlefields if you're Yi. So that's a really big difference there and something to keep in mind. And of course, we are going to be showing you maybe a couple of different deck lists as well to see what you could maybe do for a different option, maybe even a little bit cheaper option, because again, the White Flame Protector is going to be pretty expensive in that case. And if you don't want to necessarily spend that much money, you could go ahead and play for another tasty Fey Folk instead, going up to 3, or you know, even just building up something different entirely. So we'll go over that a little bit more in detail with additional deck lists down in the description below to just really help you guys out on giving you the best options. Now, Lee Sin, in my opinion, is slept on. He is a very good deck. He has a great ability. He also has really good artwork. His alt art card is only $8. That's awesome. And it's one of the best alt art cards in the game. Argue with me in the comments if you disagree, but yeah, that just looks so dang good. And it's going to be really interesting to see. Now, Master Yi's legend ability is, or sorry, Lee Sin's legend ability is so good because what it will be able to do is you go ahead and you are able to pay 1 and tap the legend, and you are able to buff something. Lee Sin is going to be able to get as many buffs as he wants. And so you could just go ahead and buff him up every single turn and do a lot with that. Now, in the meantime as well, you can go ahead and, you know, buff up some other units. Kiana being buffed is really good. Wizened Elder is really good. You can also go Udyr as well, being able to go ahead and access one of his 4 abilities by just spending a buff. And of course, there's going to be a couple of variances that you could go and build with this deck. Again, we're going to be posting a few more deck lists as well. But this is just a really fun deck to be able to take it to your opponent. Now, the most expensive cards, again, is going to be that White Flame Protector. You can switch that out with, like, Tasty Fey Folk. You could switch that out with the other Lee Sin in this case. He is very good. 6 cost is all, no power cost, unless you choose to accelerate him. And then he also adds +2 to all of your units that are buffed. And so that can be a really great option as well. Of course, if you also don't want to play the 1 Mistfall, you could switch that out for a 3rd Pit Rookie. Or even going in for like another green Lee Sin, or even switching for the orange Lee Sin as well. Choice is yours. I also did a couple of variances where I was looking at Clockwork Keeper going down to 2 in this case, to be able to play the other Lee Sin as well, just because he adds so much. Now, at the same time, you could even play, you know, there's a couple of cards that you could play to help add buffs. Kithku Monk might be a good option, or things like that. And this is the deck that might have a couple of play testing to go. My friend and I were trying to figure out what is best play testing wise for Lee Sin, and he's going to be testing that at his locals on Saturday. So that'll be really fun to be able to see. This is a very good deck, though. Very difficult to have to deal with. And you have a lot of really fun interactions that you can be able to have. And then when you get to the late game, it's can be just very explosive to take it to your opponent. Kiana, again, is going to be just such a good card to be able to take it to your opponent, because it doesn't feel good to have to extend additional resources just to target with spells in this case. And so it is so fun to be able to play. Likewise, Unyielding Spirit, very cheap card. Sabotage, about a $3 to $4 card. Cannon Barrage, you know, little cheap. And then Blitzcrank, probably, I think, a $3 card, if I recall correctly. And of course, these are going to be up to interpretation, but again, only $135. And if you go ahead and even buy the structure deck, you're going to be getting a lot of this already in there, including the other Lee Sin that you could then use to go ahead and upgrade this. White Flame Protector is going to be the big cost here, but otherwise it is looking really good. And even if you don't, that's $60 cheaper to be able to build this deck, which is really awesome to be able to see. And that's going to be the biggest thing. We don't want to necessarily have to break the bank. The prices for this market will come down. That's going to be something to keep in mind here with that. There is the hype of people here trying to get into this game as quickly as possible. With the 25K that's coming up in Orlando, I think another 10K in Georgia, the Houston regionals, the 10K in Vegas on the 23rd of this month. Just a lot of crazy stuff already going on, and things to see what's going to be coming about. Kai'Sa is still actually a fairly cheap deck, mainly due to the fact that you only need to run one Kai'Sa. You don't need to run Time Warps or things of that nature. Unfortunately, the deck that I really want to run, which is Annie, requires 3 Kai'Sas, 3 Dariuses, and, you know, the standard removal. So if I ever do want to drop $120 on trying to get 2 more Kai'Sas, I can then play Annie. And so, because I did at least get the Proving Grounds and things of that nature. But anyway, we're probably going to keep doing this again, guys. More budget decks coming your way, at least until the prices continue to cool down. But these are really fun decks to be able to take to your meta and to take to your local game store that can go ahead and battle with the best of the meta and stand a chance. It's not going to necessarily have maybe as big of a win rate as what you might see with Master Yi or Kai'Sa, but it still stands a pretty good chance. What decks would you like to see me do a budget competitive build for? Go ahead and let me know down in the comments below. And until next time, guys, have a good one.